Hello, everyone. This is Adam with psychedelicinvest.com. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful start to your week. Today's episode is going to be weekly extractions, where I basically pick some of the headlines coming out of the psychedelic sector, any talking points that I feel are interesting and I want to, I guess, piece apart and dive into, and I just talk about it with you guys. So, with that said, let's get things going. So to start things off, we have a follow-up from MindMed's. So basically, in my last video, we were piecing apart and I guess digging into the Scott Freeman and Stephen Hurst, the lawsuit that was going on between them. And it was between two people who used to work for MindMed. MindMed is not involved in the lawsuit, but due to because of some of the information that you could take out of the documents, some of that stuff was pretty damning for MindMed itself. So this is the response that MindMed came out with. So basically, to start it off, they clarify that they're not part of the litigation. They have nothing to do with this. This is between Scott Freeman and Stephen Hurst, and that's basically they're not. And it's unlikely they're going to speak more on this again. So we have that to get things going. Now let's get to the meat of this. Regarding questions on intellectual property, we reiterate that we remain highly confident in our patent strategy, which includes pursuing protection for compositions of matter, methods of treatment, and diagnostic devices, and analytics related to our lead drug candidate, MM-120, which is proprietary, pharmaceutically optimized form of LSD D-tartrate, which is structurally separate from the traditional freebase form of LSD. And MM-402, our proprietary form of MDMA. Further information on these programs, our approach, and our intellectual property strategy can be found in our most recent 10K as filed with the SEC. So as far as a response, I feel like this was they basically distanced themselves from everything, which is fine. They reiterated their confidence in their IP, which is okay. And I mean, I didn't expect much more from this from MindMed. It's in their best interest. I mean, look, if I was invested in MindMed, obviously you'd want to hear more from MindMed regarding this. But in terms of MindMed, the company, it's in their best interest to kind of keep things, stay kind of low key and not really take any of the things that were said in those documents head on. And it's just not in their best interest to do that right now. So I think what MindMed is going to do, and I'm going to get into this further in the rest of this video, is now you're starting to see that they could be shifting or being more aggressive in terms of some of the information that's getting put out there, because we've had a bunch of information come out since MindMed made this statement. But as far as this statement goes, if I'm an investor, I wouldn't be too over the top about this. It's nothing that will change anything about, like, we already knew all this, that they're confident in their patenting strategy and whatnot. There's no news here. But the next thing I'm going to get into is, I think, what makes this a little bit more interesting. So basically, we have MindMed filed for a patent application. MindMed filed a patent application for geno or phenotyping to adjust LSD dosing. So from what I understand, it's essentially like using genomic sequencing to basically tailor LSD doses to somebody's genetic sequence. So let's get into this a little bit more. I'm going to read about the abstract here. A method of dosing LSD and treating patients by assessing genetic characteristics in the patient before LSD use and administering LSD to the patient based on the patient's genetics and producing maximum positive subjective acute effects in the subject and or reducing anxiety and negative effects. A method of determining a preferred dose of LSD by determining metabolic and genetic markers in a patient, such as by assessing CYP2D6 activity and or assessing 5-HTR1A, RS6295, and 5-HTR2A, RS6313 genotypes in a patient. Adjusting a dose of LSD based on the metabolic activity and genetic profile, and administering the dose of LSD to the patient, and producing maximum positive subjective acute effects in the subject, and or reducing anxiety and negative effects. A method of determining a dose of LSD based on assessment of the presence of CYP2D6. So this is actually kind of interesting. So I'm just going to give you my thoughts on this. So in general, with LSD, so like I want to highlight here, producing maximum positive subjective acute effects and reducing anxiety and negative effects. So with LSD, because it is so stimulating, it typically can bring a lot of anxiety with it on the come up and during the psychedelic experiences. So a lot of the therapeutic benefits you'll get from LSD are when the psychedelic trip is over and you get that kind of afterglow, and then the neuroplasticity window that follows and whatnot, the relief in anxiety and depression that follow as well. But I like the approach here because at the end of the day, you want to, if you're treating patients with generalized anxiety disorder or treatment-resistant depression, whatever indication you're looking at, while they're taking the drug or the psychedelics, you want to minimize anxiety as much as possible. So I understand where they're going, what they're going for through with this, and it makes sense. Now, in regards to using geno or phenotyping to adjust LSD dosing, so I think there's a lot of hype words here in regards to you. Obviously, the whole genomic sector is pretty interesting in general, and it's being talked about more and more as medicine advances and as the genomic sequencing technology advances as well. Kathy Wood has an ETF that's dedicated to genomics, and that's where she's putting all her psychedelic plays. So something that I would kind of bring to you guys here is this could theoretically be a way of MindMed kind of maybe getting Kathy Wood's attention, maybe hoping to bring the eyes over so that it's her eyes over to MindMed as well, if she isn't already looking at them and being like, hey, we deserve a look for your ETF, because now look at this patent we've filed for. They didn't get it yet or anything, but I'm just saying this patent is the most in line with in terms of combining genomics and psychedelics. So it's just an interesting angle, and I like this from a business perspective. Now, in regards to using genophenotyping to adjust LSD dosing. So the way I've always done it was usually trial and error within myself in terms of getting the right microdoses or just micro or macro doses that would yield the most potent therapeutic benefits for myself. And like, it's not the hardest to kind of hone those dosages in, because it's just not that hard. So this could just be a lot of, once again, hype words and unnecessary things, unnecessary like genotyping or phenotyping would be unnecessary in terms of trying to hone in on that dose. But at the end of the day, we don't know yet. I don't know enough about how it's going to work, but this is just where my brain is going, where I feel like at the end of the day, they could also hone in those dosages without geno or phenotyping. It might even be less expensive. It would most likely be less expensive to do it that way. So I'm not sure how I feel about this yet. But what I do really like about this is that, number one, MindMed is coming out and filing patents. So that was my big hang up in regards to MindMed, and specifically the CEO Barrow. In terms of saying I'm holding my patents close to the chest because they don't want to, I guess, reveal anything to competitors and whatnot. I thought that was just, that didn't vibe with me at all. Every other psychedelic biotech company in the sector is aggressively filing patents, and they all have some really, really significant intellectual property. So for MindMed to be like, we're holding everything close to the chest because we don't want to tip off any of our competitors, I thought that was it just wasn't enough. And it was almost a cop-out in my experience. I couldn't take it seriously. Especially given some of the information that came out about their lack of patents in general and their lack thereof. But with this, it seems that MindMed might be getting the message and being like, hey, we might have to kind of come out and be more forthright with some of the patents that we are keeping close to the chest, or they want to generate new intellectual property and basically pursue those patents as well. So is this my question is for MindMed investors, is this a shift in philosophy maybe for MindMed? If it is, I like this. I think it makes sense given everything that's come out. And yeah, I just can't wait to hear more from MindMed. I still have an open invitation to anyone from MindMed if they want to come on the show and talk about even this. We don't have to talk about the lawsuit. We could talk about using geno or phenotyping as a way of adjusting LSD dosing. So yeah, reach out to me. I will give my my Instagram and my Reddit at the end of the video. But yeah, as far as what I'm seeing from MindMed right now and where things could be going, this is definitely in the right. They're heading in the right direction. And we'll have to see how things evolve. I'm still skeptical of a lot of the lack of patents they are filing for, and would like to see more of their intellectual property or just them filing for more patents in general. Because once again, every psychedelic company in the sector is aggressively pursuing these patents because we're early on in terms of the maturity of the psychedelic sector, and now's the time to nail down your intellectual property. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. I know it's been a rough week for MindMed investors, but yeah, this is definitely has me a bit more optimistic about how things are headed. All right, and lastly, we have Numinus. So I'm looking at the Numi F ticker. They're also on the Toronto Stock Exchange. I think it's numi.to. So basically, when I did a bullish versus bearish video on Numi after their most recent earnings report, and I think they were trading at around 20 cents. And when they were trading around 20 cents, what I said was that it seems to me, or it didn't seem to me, I said there isn't much more room for downside in regards to Numi. They are on the path to generating revenue. There could be significant amounts of revenue in their future with these clinics, and when they really start, when these clinics really start operating at full capacity, the amount of revenues they're going to be able to bring in is nothing short of significant. So, and they were trading at between 17 to 20 cents when I made that video. I said, I don't see any downside here, and I do see a reversal on the horizon. It was just, to me, the amount of risk behind the play was just non-existent at around 17 to 20 cents. And since then, Numi's been up about 30%. They've hit highs of, I want to say, 31 cents. And yeah, things are looking very good. I think in just generally, investors are realizing that, number one, at 17 to 20 cents, I think the price on Numi was criminal, especially with all the potential there and the fact that they are generating revenues already. And when we want to speculate on the psychedelic sector in general, we all know that clinic plays are going to be generating those revenues first, and they already have started. So things are looking very good for Numi. I'm happy for Numi investors. I know many are probably still down, but this is definitely good that Numi found the bottom and had a nice reversal. Now, what I would say in terms of how I would play this. So basically, Numi has been the stock price has been appreciating on known news. So it's up about 30% on known news. The volume is actually very good as well. But there's no news behind this. So in terms of if we're assessing the macroeconomic tailwinds, what I would say is don't be afraid to take profits, because at the end of the day, it's very likely we have market-wide pullbacks again, and fear will just grip the market again, and there would be an opportunity to get back in, for example, Numi at a lower price, maybe not 17 to 20 cents, but it could be around there, given the macroeconomic conditions allow it. So given enough fear in the markets, enough of a sell-off, once again, inflation, we have supply chain problems, the litany of things that are going on right now, the war in Ukraine as well. So we have all these things that could be affecting the markets. And yeah, in a market conditions like this, you should not hesitate to take profits if you're up. Do not hesitate. And listen, even if some of you are down and you want to minimize losses, you can do that as well. But that's how I feel. I think that this is great for Numi. I hope the momentum continues, and this remains to be seen. But in my opinion, given the macroeconomic conditions at play and what we know are going to be at play in the coming months and whatnot, I think it would be in the best interest of the investor to be aggressively taking profits in situations like this. So that's how I feel about Numi. Congratulations to Numi investors. Check out my bullish versus bearish Numi video. It's in the YouTube channel. It's in the past videos that we have. You can see where I was speaking on the last earnings report they had, my thoughts on it, why I thought that Numi was incredibly undervalued at around 17 to 20 cents. And once again, it's nice that they reversed. So pat myself on the shoulder for that one. But yeah, that's the video for today, guys. Have a wonderful week. My name is Adam Tubero. My name on Reddit and Instagram is Waxing Eloquence. WAXINGELOQUENCE. WAXINGELOQUENCE. Feel free to reach out to me if you have something to say. You want to talk about psychedelics. You want to be on the show. Reach out for me. I always respond to people. I'm always happy to have conversations with you guys and meet more people within the community. Have a wonderful day, guys.